Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogantz. September is National Literacy Month, and you will see a lot from AOEU over the coming weeks to celebrate that fact. But on today's episode of Art Ed Radio, it will actually be an episode from the archives of the Everyday Art Room podcast. This episode is hosted by Nic Hahn, and the guest is the one and only Peter Reynolds. I can't think of anyone better to celebrate Literacy Month and the upcoming International Dot Day than Peter Reynolds. Please enjoy the episode.
I love the book, The Dot. It's one of my favorites. So I was super excited when I saw that Art Ed Now is inviting Peter Reynolds to the conference. He is going to be our keynote speaker for Art Ed Now this summer. And I was really excited. But then, well, I almost fell off my seat because I was asked to interview Peter Reynolds. And then when we were getting started on our interview, his brother Paul was available as well. So I got a 2-for-1. So Peter and Paul Reynolds are our guests on Everyday Art Room today. And I'm your host, Nic Hahn. Welcome, guys. Not a ton of introduction is really going to be needed here. We have Peter Reynolds and his brother, Paul Reynolds, here to talk to us today. They are going to be at the Art Ed Now conference, and we're just really excited to have you. So welcome, you guys.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. Art teachers know you. I mean, they know your books. They know several of your books and your style for sure. But let's get started with a little bit more personal level. And let's talk about your relationship with Paul, who we just introduced. I know that you guys have a relationship with your business as well as on a personal level of being brothers. Can you talk to that a little bit? What is your relationship and your working collaboration?
Yeah, well, I always say I was one of the lucky ones. I was born with my best friend, Paul, and he's my big brother by 14 minutes. And it's funny because I think in some ways that sort of set the course because I am the dreamer of the duo, and Paul kind of gets things done. And so it makes sense that Paul would have been ready to be born first and, left me behind for a 14-minute nap. And then when we emerged as a duo, and we have shared the journey very closely. And while we are identical twins, and there's a lot that is the same, there's also, a lot that's different, which I think kind of informs our work. We're really big on promoting, thinking about what makes you unique. Being born a twin, everyone, oh, you're identical twins. And they're sort of fascinated with how we're the same. But really every single one of us, including identical twins, we're all different. And that's what makes us humans really, really interesting because, we have different passions, different dreams, different talents. And, I think the role of an art teacher, art educator is to draw that out and help kids understand, who are they? How are they unique? How are they different? Manifests itself in style, right? And how boldly you make your lines. But you can also encourage kids to grow, right? And to make bolder lines and splash, with more color or be more precise. It depends on where you want to go. And speaking of precision, Paul, you probably can speak to this. I love drawing quickly, and I probably draw maybe 20 to 40 drawings every day. probably more on napkins and envelopes as I'm chatting to people. And Paul, you've always been gravitated towards more detail and precision.
Right, and that is interesting that we're both artists, and people would assume that you must have the same art style, but it's a very different art style. And I think I have maybe we have different temperaments, and patience is one of the things that I was born with or fostered along the way. And so my art style in some ways is on one end of the spectrum is very detailed, and on the other end of the spectrum is very abstract. And not that people in the podcast can see this, but there's a picture I just found from the files from when I was 15 years old of my sister Jane, and that is very, very detailed.
Yes, extremely. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. Paul, from really, I mean, it was amazing how early that photorealism sort of took off, and you found that pencil, and it just spoke to you. And finding the right tool, I think that's always fascinating too, because I think it tells us about who you are. Yeah. Why does a chisel and a stone speak to you, while oil and a brush speaks to someone else, or ink and watercolor? And as Paul said, Paul's definitely more patient than I am. I love to get things done and fast, and that's why give me a Sharpie marker and a regular 8.5 sheet of paper, copier paper, and I'm quite happy.
There was one moment in time when Peter was living in Harvard Square, and there was an old Sears Roebuck down the street, and he would go in to get supplies for the apartment, and he noticed that there were dented and returned cans of paint, and that people didn't want because it was quote unquote the wrong color.
Right.
And as Peter called them, the orphan paints, they were just orphaned there. And so one day he went in and told the paint guy, how much for everything there. So he bought all the paint, brought them back to the apartment, and he started what we call the orphan painting series. So all the paintings that he did with just interior latex paint, he just threw on canvases, and they're some of my favorite pictures. We'll have to send you some of those pictures.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it was like maybe if it was $15. I think it was about that, and it was amazing to me that I had so much paint for so little money, and I think when that helped me relax too, and I think us artists, we sometimes get, you go to the art store and you see that little tube of cobalt blue paint, and you look and it's like $22 for this tiny little thing of blue paint. And I think for us to really let loose what's inside, find cheaper materials, find cardboard, find wood, find things that you, in a sense, you don't care about. I often tell people, like, whatever you do, don't get a really super fancy journal, the kind with ribbons and leather bound, and because you'll never want to write in it, or very few people, they feel like, they're not worthy to make marks in it. So just, run down to the, to the stationer shop and just get yourself. I actually get 3x5 note cards. Those are my favorites, and I just dash things out quickly without worry. Which, of course, that's the theme of my book, Ish, which is right, just to not worry about getting it just right, but just do a lot of it, right? Just let it flow. Let those loose lines spring out without worry.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that word ish has become part of my vernacular. Use it all the time. And it's due to your book, and due to the idea of what ish really means. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, both of you guys, well, actually, maybe you'll have to explain this to me. Are both of you co-owners of the bookstore that you guys run?
Yes, this is a family-owned bookstore, and 17 years ago, I looked around town and noticed that we didn't have a bookstore, and I thought that's a very, very sad thing. And rather than just saying it's a sad thing, I decided to do something about it. And I picked up my paintbrush and I painted a scene of a bookstore based on this tailor shop that was closing after 60 years. It decided to close. And I loved the hardwood floor and the tin ceilings. And I said, I can imagine a bookstore. So I illustrated the bookstore. And then I had dear friend Dawn Haley Morton, who's very left-brained. And she teamed up with Paul, who's very organized, and his amazing wife, Janet, who was in the publishing business and is also super organized. And we basically formed this little team, and we opened up a bookstore. And here we are 17 years later, and the Blue Bunny Bookstore in Dedham, Massachusetts, which is our hometown, is still hopping.
And I think that's the power of creativity. It's not just in the art room, but it's to vision things that don't exist yet, and to have that ability to be a visual thinker, and then have that superhuman talent of saying, "Oh, I can actually show you what I'm thinking." And Pete literally sketched out this vision for the store, and by virtue of that conversion process, he actually made it real. And as soon as you see the image, then you get people excited about the vision, and people want in. And here we are, 17 years later. The Blue Bunny is just it keeps on hopping, and we did the same thing with Fable Vision, and creating an educational technology company. We're based at the Boston Children's Museum, super fun, playful place. But that idea, like that, Pete came up with the name Fable Vision, and I think that's key, Pete, too. When you say is that blend of story and visionary capability.
Right. Yeah, that was fun coming up with the name. I knew that we were going to do purposeful media, and of course, a fable is a teaching story. And I'm a big believer that story is still one of the most powerful technologies we have for teaching, for inspiring and informing. And so I thought fable has got to be part of this name. And then vision. I love that word vision. Right? It's being able to see the things that do not yet exist. And creative people are very, very good at that. They're very good at seeing things before they actually happen. Even when I'm drawing, I can see the drawing flash in front of me. And my pencil or pen basically is just tracing what this flash is in my mind. And so I stuck those two words together, fable, vision. And in fact, I encourage people to name their studios if they haven't. If you have a classroom, rather than calling it, B7 or the art room.
Yeah.
It's a studio. It deserves a name. Come up with a good name. Maybe have kids rename it every year. Design logos for it. Do T-shirts. And my current studio is called The Sanctuary. And I really needed to carve out a space to hear myself think. Yeah. And I really encourage everybody who's listening, make sure that you have your space. There's so much incoming. There's so many demands on you. There's so much to read. There's so many posts. There is so much social media. There's so many books. There's so many films. There's all of this stuff coming at you and being put into you. And it's very, very hard sometimes to hear your voice, that voice that's inside of you. And if you give yourself some time and space, you'll hear it. And it's a beautiful thing when it happens.
Oh, I love it. You're talking to the right audience for sure here. I mean, I'm sitting here with my head bobbing up and down the whole time. Like, I know what you're talking about, and I know our listeners are going to as well. You're speaking to the right audience. So speaking of that audience, you have a huge fan group amongst the art teachers. And I know that Dot Day is celebrated within classrooms, within art classrooms, within homeschools, throughout the world. Dot Day is based on your book, The Dot. tell me about how Dot Day came and how it evolved, and maybe your takeaways of what it looks like now.
Yeah, International Dot Day. Yeah, well, it started with a teacher who, as we like to say, activated the book. He read the book, but then he allowed the kids to kind of dive in more deeply. And in their process of diving, they noticed that in the book, in the copyright section, it says release date, September 15th, 2003. So they asked their teacher, Mr. Shea, Terry Shea, is that the birthday of the book? And so he said, well, why don't we ask the author? So they wrote me a letter and asked me, is that the birthday of the book? And I thought, what a great idea. Yeah, sure. That's the birthday. So they had a party. They had a party for the book. And they made dots.
One stipulation, didn't you, Pete? They were saying, can we celebrate it on September 15th? And you said September 15th-ish, right? So,
yeah. Yes.
Around the 15th, yeah.
Yes, around there. It doesn't, right.
That may have
September 15th is just fine.
Yeah.
So they painted dots, and they brought in dot food, and they wore dot clothing, and they signed their dots, and they made frames for their dots, and they created a gallery. And of course, Mr. Shea posted it on Facebook, and his teacher friends were like, hey, we missed out, you're going to do it again next year. And he's like, yes, join me. So I think the next year, maybe he had, 40 or 50 teachers. Yeah. And of course they posted, and then the next year it was a couple of thousand, and then 15,000 the next year. And it just keeps
involved. And when we heard that it reached 17,500, and I think I had him repeat that. Did you say 17,500 teachers, librarians, students celebrating? And I think at that point it was in 5 or 6 states. Yeah. And I said, well, that there's something going on there. And so we adopted it as a project with our nonprofit, which is the Reynolds Center for Teaching, Learning, and Creativity, Reynolds TLC. And that year it jumped to 850,000 participants in 50 countries, I think. And that was, totally unexpected. We've done a lot of things on our creative journey, and that one even surprised us that I think the world was hungry for some way to connect and share those universal truths around creativity, and also connecting creativity to purpose. Yeah. So how are you going to make your mark in the world? How will you use your creativity to move this world to a better place? Which is it's so nourishing for us. And I get giddy. I get giddy. Pete knows it. I'm insufferable, especially as we approach September 15th. Start seeing all these amazing teachers, and they're sending in videos and photographs of murals and projects and interactives. And it is, I call it very social studies, because we're also connecting with people around the globe. There are places I literally have to look. I look to figure out where is that country? I didn't even know it was a country. How many countries are there? And then we dig in every country that joined. I began, doing the research, and also then connecting with people. And it is very social studies. So we're actually connecting human beings around the planet who believe.
And I like to point out to teachers to ask teachers. Have your kids figure out how many countries there are, how many countries celebrate Dot Day, and what countries do not celebrate Dot Day. And it's very interesting. The list of countries that do not celebrate International Dot Day. And, probably not a big surprise that these are countries that do not encourage original thinking. They want, they're state-run. They want their people in line and thinking the state-approved thoughts. And it's a good reminder that creativity is incredibly powerful, and it's very, very much the foundation of our democracy. Because creativity means being generous of spirit, being able to juggle opposing points of view in a peaceful, harmonious way, and learn from it. And it's the arts are really powerful. So that was a great lesson for me when I took a look at that list of the countries that don't. And of course, my hope is that one day that every country will celebrate International Dot Day, because I think it'll be a better, more peaceful world.
Oh, that's beautiful to know that you have a part of that. That it started with the dot, your little dot that you started. So speaking about this, like reaching out and watching something grow and develop, I know that you have been reading on Facebook on a regular basis during quarantine. Has it been only your books, the books that you have written?
It started out with reading my books.
Okay.
That just seems sort of the natural.
Yep.
Of course, I started with the dot. Right, it starts with a dot.
That's right.
And then I, of course, the quarantine went on and on and on. It was
does. Yeah.
It was actually exhausting. I was doing it every day, and then I decided I would do it twice on Fridays on Facebook and Instagram, and it was. And then I decided to start reading other people's books as well, and. Certain books, they were just the right book to read. And The Earth book by Todd Parr, I read that. I read Listen by Holly McGee. And that was when I lost a dear friend, Bill Norris, during the pandemic. And I knew I needed a special book. And I was in my bookstore and I was scanning through all the books, and we have hundreds and hundreds of books. And this book, Listen, just kind of stood out to me. And I started reading it, and I'm like, it's just such a lovely, lovely book. And it's beautifully illustrated by Pascal Lemaitre. And I said, yeah, this will be the book. So I read the book, and I read it live, and it was very difficult, emotional for me to do it live. Because I dedicated to Bill, and I get to the last page, and Polly and Pascal had left the dedication to the last page. So I read the dedication. It was to Bill and Jean Steig, and Bill Steig illustrated Shrek, among many other books, and his wife is also an amazing artist. She uses found objects, Jean Steig. And what was sort of a cosmic coincidence is that my friend Bill, who I had lost the week before, had his partner, her name is Jeannie. So it said to Bill and Jean. And I thought, wow, that's sort of the universe speaking once again. And so it was, the right book at the right time. Right. And I think that's the magic of, educators helping kids find the right book at the right time that speaks to them. And that sometimes kids can find it on their own, but often they need they need someone to guide them there. Yep. And so I'm a big advocate of books, no matter what you're teaching, whether it's math or science or art. Books and narrative and story is really, really powerful, and we need to blend them more.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Speaking of reading books out loud, I've heard that Mr. Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle Obama, read your book. Tell me about how you found out about that and what your feelings are from that.
Yeah, wow. That was, again, another one of those, the universe speaking, because I had, this again was just about the time I had lost our dear friend, Bill Norris, who, by the way, we called the Dot Connector. He had worked at our company Fablevision for 22 years and was really my right hand person helping me every day do what I do. And so, we're just kind of having a down week. And I got this email from Scholastic saying, the Obama Foundation had reached out and said, could we get permission to use some of your images from the word collector? So that was all they said. And I said, yeah, sure. That'd be an honor. Don't know how they're going to use it. And then a couple of days later, it was Terry Shea, the founder of Dot Day. He actually sent me a message and said, hey, how cool is this? Tomorrow morning, Barack and Michelle Obama are going to be reading The Word Collector live as part of the Chicago Public Library program. And I'm thinking, what? When is this? And yes, it was the next morning. So Paul and I tuned in, and we watched the President and First Lady read the Word Collector, and it was so delightful. They did such a great job, and it was very spirited and animated the way they read it. And I was, pinching myself, and of course it went viral, and I think I've lost count of how many millions of people have seen that since. But it was lovely, and the Word Collector especially is near and dear to my heart. I love story. I love art, obviously. I love words, and I've been a big word collector myself. And I wanted kids not to think of words as vocabulary they have to memorize, but words they can collect, and they're their words. And how awesome is it to have two amazing human beings share that story and inspire kids and grown-up kids too to be word collectors around the world.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. Wow. Where to even take it from there? I think what, as we kind of started out with, the audience that we're talking to right now is majority art teachers who probably practice on their own. Can we talk about your process a little bit? Either we talked about your painting and your little orphan paints, which I adore that story. But can you talk about like the writing and the just how you create your art? How does that come to you?
Well, I guess there are two categories, because there's my illustration when and it's purposeful art, right? I'm trying to tell a story. And I think that's a different part of my brain than the side of my brain that just makes art. And, if I pick up a pen and I start doodling, it's just, it's more my spirit moving me. I'm often surprised what comes out of that, the pen. And I love it. It's such freedom to do. But, illustrating books is it definitely takes a different part of the brain. And what I do is I usually start with an idea or a mission, right? I'm like, I wish, that more people would, collect words, let's just say, right? Love words. So the mission is, okay, I want people to share that joy of words. And then I think, okay, I'm going to create this little movie, and I'm going to cast people to be in my movie. And in this case, in the Word Collector, I cast Jerome, and then I make this film in my head, and I watch the film in my head, and I'm like, okay, that's a lovely little story. I better jot that down, right? And I take my sketch notes of my little film in my head, and I just quickly sketch things out. And again, it's very sketchy just to get my ideas down before they disappear, which is, always reminding kids, like, that's the importance of having that pencil and paper nearby, because your brain is capable of amazing things, and it's going to come up with some amazing, amazing ideas. And how sad if you forget your ideas. So jot them down. So I have, if you look in my studio, everything's covered with doodles, because my pen is always going to capture the ideas, my thoughts, and my stories, and then also just to make art that makes me happy.
Paul, do you practice creating for creation, or is that part of your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I do every day at Fable Vision with images, with words. I do a lot of writing, creative writing, so I'm doing that all day. I would say probably one of my favorite places for creation is my garden, and I find my the designing and the visioning and the creation and the tending of my garden as as nourishing as anything that I would put on paper. So that's another place.
Yeah, that's the beauty of creativity. I think sometimes when people think about art, they think about drawing or painting, but creativity is much larger than that, as you had mentioned with your garden.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we should probably wrap things up a little bit here. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the future here. And I know that you have a book coming out in September. Can you guys talk to that?
Sure. Yeah. I almost forget which books are coming out because
Yes.
It usually takes it from the time it's all done. It takes somewhere between 6 months to sometimes a year before the book actually hits the shelf. But this fall, I've got a coloring book coming out. It's actually coloring book-ish, and it's called Make Your Mark Gallery, a coloring book-ish. And it has 40 frames that I designed, and they're black and white. And I encourage kids to add color to the frames, but the interior of the frames, most of them are empty. And so where is the art going to come from? It's going to come from you, the participant. And I've also thrown in a few squiggles as well, because that was a game that Paul and I used to love playing as kids, the squiggle game. I'd make a squiggle, he'd make a squiggle, we'd trade squiggles, and then you use your imagination to figure out what those squiggles can become. And so by the way, the pages in the coloring book are perforated, so you can tear them out and hang them in your wherever you live or at school, and you can create your own gallery. Because I want people to create for themselves, and also, when you're ready, share it with the world.
That's beautiful. I'll probably get my kids one, but I'll probably buy one for myself as well. I think, yeah, that sounds so interesting.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You just hit on something. Our work, Paul and I, we both believe that what we're doing it's certainly for kids, but it's also for grown-up kids too.
Yeah.
And we want adults also to take care of their own creative batteries, recharge them, and be inspired. We love kids, and we want them to navigate their true potential. But we humans, we're never done, right? It's still a long journey, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Stay healthy and well, and live as long as you can, because every day is a new opportunity to add to the next page in that blank book you were given at birth, right? Every day you wake up is another day to make your mark. And so, when you graduate from high school, it's not over. When you graduate from college, not over. When you get your first job, it's not over. You keep going and just don't stop. So keep going and never stop, which is one of Paul and I, but that's one of our favorite phrases, right, Paul?
Absolutely. And create bravely is another one of our monikers that, is really, really important. And I think it captures our mission. Because you could say be creative, but in some ways, when you say that, especially the older you get, the more you freeze up. Like me, be creative. What do I say? Yeah. What do I write? I teach at the university level at Boston College, undergraduate communications, and I swear, 60% of what I do is emotional therapy to get to be okay, because they're like, I have no idea what to write about, what to create, what to a video to do, and there's so much conditioning the older we get to really get so right to be right about it, and that we end up freezing up, and creativity is definitely not going to flow. As Pete said, I think adults really deeply resonate with the stories because they were wounded in some way along the way. And I call them the walking wounded. We're all, you dress up in the right lighting and the right, you exude confidence, but somewhere lurking inside was, I should probably drawn. I should have probably written. I should have probably done, pursued those creative pursuits. And so that encouragement, encourage, to put courage in, is really what we're doing with our stories and artwork and connections like this with amazing educators. We can create stories and images and words, but we need our partners, our creative partners out there who take the stories and the art and hyper localize the stories, like Mr. Shea did with his kids.
Yeah.
It turns out that when he hyper localized it for his kids and made it relevant and he activated the story, he actually did something that in a connected universe truly changed the world in some ways. So, and it's not us, it's this connection we have with amazing, educators, like the ones who are listening today.
Yeah. Well, Peter and Paul, I thank you so much for joining us today. It was an amazing conversation.
Thank you. Well, lovely to connect the dots with you and also everybody that's listening. Thank you for all you do to inspire those around you, because that ripples out. You inspire those kids, they're going to inspire their parents and their communities. And the work that you're doing, I really do believe will change the world. So thank you for what you do, and let's stay connected.
Okay, you guys, did you not get chills from head to toe when you were listening to those guys? I mean, there's just something about talking about creativity with creatives, right? I know for myself, like everything that they were saying, I was, nodding my head up and down saying, yep. I agree. Oh, I never thought of it that way. That's an amazing idea. I'm totally going back to my classroom and changing the name of my art studio, which I do call studio, but it's just Hassan Art Studio. Nope, we need to come up with something a lot more clever. That was a great idea. I can't wait to hear even more at the conference coming up July 30th. Guys, if you have not been to an Art Ed Now conference, this is the time. This is the time to jump on. I've been fortunate to go to every single one except for one. I presented at every single one except for one. So I definitely know the ins and outs, and I am fed by this conference. I go to a lot of PD. I'm a continuous learner. This is one of my favorites by far. I love the short bits. What you're doing is you're hearing from people all over the world, and you're getting the best, their best message in 10 minutes. Whatever they can share in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's what you're getting. And that's what makes this so exciting and so important. And on top of this, we get to hear more from Peter Reynolds. I hope to see you at the Art Ed Now conference, July 30th. Just hop over to the Art of Education University website and sign up today.